Well, okay. We're getting kind of short on this interview though. Before you have to go, I want to
Well,
ask again.
I'm
What do you think is the moral justification for setting up these red light districts to where homosexual a homosexual couple cannot kiss each other in a plain public street? No, you must. You're only allowed to kiss in the red light district. What's the moral justification in that?
well, we have there are certain laws that there's it all has to do with sorry, I have to gather my thoughts. It all has to do with the idea that you cannot use your private property to interfere with a person with the exercise of a person's natural capacities.
Wait. We're not talking about private property necessarily.
Well, I we are actually.
Well,
If
I'm
you're
talking about like a public street, for example. Like, yes, ANCAPs would, to all my ANCAP subscribers, they would prefer that publicly owned streets, publicly owned roads weren't a thing. But for right now, we're just taking this issue as it is. Two gay
but if
people
there's an
like
owner to
kissing on
no,
a publicly owned street. No, you don't want that. You want them to do it specifically in the red light district.
yes, and the reason why is that
Okay.
it can constitute a form of moral pollution. Essentially, it's the corrupt. The idea is that people have a right to live in an environment that is free from that kind of corrupting influence because it can damage the ability to act in a virtuous and ethical manner.
Corrupting influence. Another way that somebody
Yes.
could have a quote unquote corrupting influence is if they're like expressing a different political belief that other people hear and it corrupts them or something or other. It's almost like you say that people supposedly have a right to not be in an environment that has a corrupting influence. That almost opens the door to something that opens the door to something like that, like censoring certain opinions or more specifically on the issue that we're talking about right here, putting homosexual people in the red light districts if they're practicing homosexuality.
Well, we can talk about why you. Well, why? Here's the thing, though. Why would it's just kind of you do bring up a good point there, but I think there's other considerations that political speech has that homosexual actions do not have. That I don't think that sex acts are protected under free speech, for instance.
No, they're not. They're not speech, but I mean, I don't recall anybody ever saying technically that gay marriage should be allowed because of free speech. But they just say gay marriage should be allowed because it's not harming anybody.
Well,
Like,
well,
thus
it's
why should the government get involved? And
well,
if it did,
for
if
one
it
thing,
go on.
for one thing, of gay marriage, to say that first of all, gay marriage actually does not exist. It's a legal fiction.
Okay,
If
well, the
you look
definition that
at
I've
the
looked up of Merriam-Webster, I can look it up again here for this moment. From Merriam-Webster, it doesn't say explicitly one man and one woman. It says two people just in general. So that's the definition I was
well,
going off of. But I won't.
that is a recent redefinition. Yes,
Okay.
it
And
doesn't really
until
make
like
sense.
until
It does.
until the definition gets turned back to there, though, I don't know. I don't really
Well,
see
I
the
mean, who writes the dictionaries though?
people.
Well, exactly. I mean, do you want
Whoever runs the Merriam-Webster website. Okay,
so
so
what
I don't want to
was
go on a big semantics debate. So you know what? It's whatever. Let's not. I'm not even
well
going to say gay marriage. Let's just say
it's the
homosexuality or homosexual acts or whatever. I can't even remember what point I
well
was on before we got talking about semantics of marriage.
well you said that the government there's no reason for the government to be involved with marriage. Well, one reason for the government to be involved with marriage is because marriage is the only healthy a marriage is the only healthy environment that can safely raise children, and children are our future. And that I think that the state has
I mean,
the legitimate
unless that marriage is a toxic one between the two spouses that
well,
cannot get along together well.
I
So,
mean, do you want
to say that marriage is like the only environment, or I'm paraphrasing by the way, that to say that marriage is the only ideal environment for raising kids, it's kind of subjective on a case by case basis,
not
depending on the
really,
people, depending on the
not
people
really.
that are married.
If we're talking now, come on, man. We know you've read Thomas Sowell, right? You know about the problems with single parent households and
Hey,
how
I did not advocate for single parent households. I'm not
well,
saying
but you're basically
no,
advocating for a position. You're advocating for a position of indifference. That is You are basically saying
no,
between in single
no.
parent households and generally speaking, single parent households and the normal golden standard two family. There's not really any appreciable difference,
I'm
and it's
not
all case by
I'm
case
not
basis.
advocating for indifference. So I guess if you want to go off on a limb, the only indifference I'm advocating for is from the government. Like the government get outright not involved in marriage. I'm more of the in the pendulette camp when it comes to this issue. As he said once, it's rather creepy for the government to be knowing who you're having sex with.
Well, I don't.
But as far
Well,
as okay, as far as my own feelings though, I'm not indifferent to what type of relationships should go on. I think it would be best if a kid was raised in a one man, one woman married couple household. Ideally, though, although as far as but also I'm for allowing gay people to adopt if they want to, but that's a little bit of a different story. I'm for allowing it though. It doesn't necessarily mean that I outright want it to happen philosophically speaking, but even philosophically speaking, I don't care enough because yeah, I would rather more gay people adopted than more abortions happened or more kids just end up stuck in the foster care system for all their life pretty much. But no, I'm not expressing an indifference on the issue of what type of relationships should be the case.
well, you're. Well, I don't. Okay, then. So you have so the only real difference there is that I think the state has a legitimate duty to make sure that kids are raised properly.
Hmm. Well,
I mean,
define raised properly because some people say that spanking should not happen at all.
well, they'd be wrong, but
I mean, I would agree with you, but should the government be outright mandating that parents should apply spankings? I mean, some parents might legitimately not even need to apply spankings, hardly at all, if at all, ever in their parenting life.
well, we can. Well, the state is only a force of prohibition. We can't. The state shouldn't
Okay.
be used. The state shouldn't be used to coerce somebody to do some positive action. It should only be used to take certain actions off the table.
All right. That makes sense, but it still makes the point that is okay. I can't remember what the exact word that you were saying earlier, but you said something along the lines of proper parenting is the business of the government to get involved. But the point
Well,
still
yes,
stands. But what is considered proper parenting is kind of subjective. Like, do you teach your kids a religion, or do you refrain from teaching them religion?
well, it's we can know what proper parenting doesn't look like. For instance, we can know that if our imaginary parents are these evil assholes who torture their children, we
Right.
know we know that's not good parenting, and
Mm-hmm.
we know that
You're
if
talking
we
on the
know
more objective level, though. I was talking on the more subjective level. Go on though.
There isn't really a subjective level. There's only differences of opinion. I mean, we can.
What's the what's the difference in that?
I mean, what I mean,
Opinions are subjectivity.
Okay, well,